one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Ray Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrestling, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. You hear that super sizzle? That's the kind of deliciousness you'll only experience at the outdated drive-up, drive-through, the only wrestling-related drive-through in the lower 48. We've been in business since 1964. We have a new wing to our restaurant. It's devoted to the 1960s wrestling stars. That's right, all foods and delicacies named after the stars from the mat world. Come on in and try a Dick Hutton hot dog, or a Bruno Sammartino stromboli, or how about some Rose Roman noodles? It's all 60s all the time. We got food for the kids. We got chocolates and whatnot. We got Johnny Valentine candy, Antonino Rocca candy, and of course, Ivan Kalmakoff crunchies. We got old-fashioned drinks. They're called Soda Pop Rickies. We got Ani Wiki Wiki Rickies and Spaceman Frank Hickey Rickies. And one more thing for the kids, Whipper Watson licorice whips. We got a breakfast bar there. How about a Bavarian Boys Bretzel? We have health food, too. Fruit off the vine like Doug Gilbert grapes. We also had something named after the spoiler, but it went bad. But you got to come in and try our specialty, the thing that keeps the people coming back in their cars day after day, week after week. It's the Pat Patterson Panini, made on our own Luther's press. Delicious from day and night. So come on into the outdated drive-thru. It's right past the Wiggly thing, past the tree. Take a left where the old shoe town was. Take a right. When you see all that dirt, you'll be right here. The outdated drive-thru division of the outdated wrestling hour. And I almost forgot some of our big specialties. How about our Slammin' Sammy Steamboat Salami Sandwich? It tastes funny. Sort of like pineapple. But folk love it. This is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. How is everybody tonight? My name is Bob Smith, the former editor-writer for PWI and all the associated London magazines back in the day. Our co-host, as always, comes to you with a plum, and sometimes a plum. Wait a minute. Who is M.O.? It's Joe Puccio, by the way, our good friend, but what's M.O. in the staff box? Come now, explain yourself.
No explanation, Bob. Really, this one is just it just came to me. What can I tell you? They don't always have stories behind them. You know, maybe subconsciously. I'm trying to think what it could have been subconsciously. Was I thinking about Mo Rivera, Mariano? Was I thinking about Mo from Men on a Mission?
Mo Howard?
Mo Howard, could it be?
Yeah. King among men, Mo Howard.
That's right.
He came up with the classic term, I'll mortalize you. We ain't getting no place fast. When like Curly would be tied up in a phone booth or something.
Is that one of his lines? Okay.
We ain't not getting no place fast. And I never knew what that quite meant, but he said it at least 3 times in the shorts. Listen, folks, I am a Stoogeaholic. I still watch him probably 3 times a week. Yeah. The entire Columbia shorts all of them, 156 or whatever, are all free of charge fans of Tubi
Yeah.
and Amazon and a bunch of other streaming services now. I guess they've just kind of thrown them out to the masses since this is 2026, and the first one was recorded in 1934 or something like that. So
Uh-huh.
it's the golden age for people who just say, "Hey, I'd love to see a pie fight," and you just, you can just click a couple of buttons, and some snooty boot old lady gets hit right in a mush with a Boston cream. So you got to love it.
I still get a kick out of them as well. I tend to leave them on for at least 10, 15 minutes, and it's hard to turn off. It's so dumb, and it's so funny, though. It's just one of those things that you can't, not that they're anything really alike, but it's the same concept for me. It's the same feeling I get like when I watch Mr. Bean. Are you ever a Mr. Bean fan?
Although I like Rowan Atkinson a lot, I am
Okay.
not a Mr. Bean fan, though.
Not. See,
No.
that's one of the things that I first discovered years and years ago, and I just couldn't get enough of him. I was on a Mr. Bean, a marathon of his stuff. I just couldn't get enough of it for a period there. And it's the same thing. It's like some of it is so stupid and it's just so dumb, but it's so funny. I think he's really good.
Who would think, though, getting back to the Stooges, when they started in the 30s, their last one was like 1956 or something like that. I'm just pulling the numbers off the top of my head. Did they ever dream that a comedy act, which was really something free you got from seeing a feature film? Remember, they showed that before feature films.
Yep.
They were shorts. Could anybody dream that they would still be looked at in 2026?
I know.
It's phenomenal. I don't think there's been another comedy act with the staying power of the Three Stooges. Now, I'm not talking about overall quality. I mean, there are other fine comedians out there, but the Stooges, they're just eternal. You know why? You can shut off your brain and either laugh or cringe watching them. People either love them or hate them. This I know. I'm sure you know people who hated the Three Stooges, right?
I don't know. It's funny you say that. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I know any offhand that's like, oh, I can't stand them. I don't know. You actually know people who think they're terrible that won't even watch them?
Usually women, yeah.
Women, yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, women just thought they were crude and nasty.
Yeah.
And well, if you look at a short like Goof on the Roof, where the whole premise of the short is they're going to put a TV antenna on top of a house,
Uh-huh.
and the entire short consists of them beating the hell out of each other, and then Shemp falling through the ceiling with the antenna right into the living room, and it's just nothing but complete mayhem and
Right.
damage and slapping and guys hitting each other for 20 minutes. That's not everybody's cup of tea, and I understand that. Because a lot of the Stooge shorts were nothing but them beating the tar out of each other for 18 minutes.
You're right.
Right? A lot
You're
of them.
right.
However,
Well,
anytime the three of them danced at the same time, Curly did the shuffle where he was like kicking his feet back and he's sideways, but he's not moving. Like his feet are moving, and
yeah.
and then at the end he moves up about a foot and does a pelvic thrust, right? Just sticking
Yeah.
his groin out into the
Curly
camera. I'm like,
shuffle, right?
the curly shuffle. It was amazing. There's a biography of Curly, a book that's out to this day, and who wrote the foreword? Michael Jackson.
Get out of here.
He claims he got some of his dance moves from Curly.
This is legitimate? Michael
Yes.
Jackson wrote the foreword.
He wrote the foreword.
Wow, I gotta look that up. I
I
had
think
no
it's
idea
called
about that.
Curly, the Illustrated Biography of the Super Stooge. It's on
Wow.
Amazon and everything else, and the foreword is written by Michael Jackson.
That's a good little trivia note. I had no idea about that.
Well, us two Stooges welcome you back to this wrestling podcast. Although Curly did a wrestling short. You remember that? He was a wrestler. I think he played Bust Off. There was a Russian wrestler. He got drunk and knocked out, so they cut his beard off and put it on Curly and threw him in the ring.
Oh, wow, no.
Yeah. There's a couple wrestling themed things in the Stooges. But anyway, we're going back in time not that far, although it is outdated, going back to the 80s and 90s and looking at our friend Brian Webster, who I haven't seen in person. It's probably 91 or 92, and it's going to be a thrill to have him back on the show. I haven't interviewed him yet, but he was the longtime announcer for both ICW and IWCCW, the Mario Savoldi promotion that a lot of the country got to see. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him again, which got me to thinking about some other announcers that came and went. And I'm not going to talk about the normal, Gordon Soley's and Lance Russell's because we've done that before. I want to look back at the other guys, some of the other announcers who, here's the beauty part. Back in the day, I never said, ooh, that announcer's awful. What the hell is he talking about? They were all fine,
Yeah.
at least to me. And I will say this. Who is it? Excalibur in AEW? He gets so much flack. I'll tell you what, he's not awful. He's not bad. I do not know why he sits with a mask to do commentary. It doesn't make any sense. Personally, I listen to him, and he doesn't make me wanna throw my shoe at the TV. He's fine.
Excalibur is one of my favorite current announcers. I think he's really good. Maybe I just don't see it online, like who goes off on him. But if
It's
they
no,
do,
it's mainly, I think, Cornette or Brian Lassam. I can't remember which one, but they're way down on him.
oh,
I
Cornette
mean,
doesn't like him.
one of the 2 of them. It may be
Okay,
Brian Last, but they are way down on him for the most obvious reason. He just why does he get that extreme mascot?
but
First of
you're
all,
saying so just because of the mask, but
well,
not for what his
it's
actual
that
performance.
that is inherently stupid, but the thing
Yeah.
is, I don't think I liked his performance either. But when I hear him, that's the least of my problems with AEW is the announcing.
Right. He's a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to the business. He does his homework, and that's something that I'm always impressed with him. You can't deny that. A lot of announcers, they come in and they half-ass it. He does not. He knows his stuff. He actually talks really, really quickly as well. And with that product, it's actually a blessing because you need to get in a lot of info in there. I think he works well with Shivani. They're a good team. So yeah, I don't know why. As far as the mask goes, I don't know to be honest with you, where that started, that gimmick, but
But he was a wrestler.
why he continued to do it in the announcer's booth, I don't know. It's his gimmick. Yeah.
That is one of them. Maybe he thinks in the beginning it gave him credibility as I'm a former wrestler, still a wrestler, and I'm doing this commentary so people would know he was in the business. Where if he was Biff Masterson, whatever his name is, I do not know his real name.
Yeah.
But there's been plenty of wrestling organizations where you just see 2 younger guys behind a desk and nobody
Yeah.
questions it. They
Yeah.
just got hired to announce. So I don't know. I don't really care. At this point, he's ensconced. How long they been around? 7, 8 years now? So let him do what he does. He's the least of AEW's problems. We'll put it that way. I just want to wax poetic about my initial announcer, Jack Reynolds, the eternally tuxedos, immaculately coiffed 1970s guy who wouldn't know a wrist lock from a headlock, but he was so endearingly over the top enthusiastic and corny as Jiffy Pop. I still love the guy. I am not gonna tell you he's one of the great announcers of all time in terms of knowledge or anything. He was very good at putting over the angles and the talent, like, very good. And remember, wrestling was promoted differently in those days. If you listen to you now, you go, "Listen to this guy. What's he so excited about?" Well, that's what he was there for. He's selling a product. He was a famous Cleveland radio personality. In fact, I remember being a kid, having a transistor radio on, taking a shower, right? I used to do that and listen to the radio in the shower,
Yeah. Yeah.
And at night, you could pick up all different kinds of stations from all over the East Coast, from upstate New York, where I was living. And I picked up Cleveland clear as a bell, and he was hosting a talk show. I said, "Oh my God, that's Jack Reynolds." And I was excited because I'd been watching him on wrestling. So
Of
I
course.
listen, I was what, 13?
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's Jack Reynolds. Maybe we'll talk about wrestling. He didn't. He was talking about the county fair that was coming to town or something like that. So I don't know what to say other than every time I tune in an IWA tape somewhere, and there he is holding his mic with that tuxedo on,
Yeah. Right.
which is also kind of dumb. Why did anybody ever wear tuxedos to the wrestling card? That makes no sense either. A tuxedo? Why? This isn't wrestling. It maybe wrestling at the Chase, maybe, but
Right.
in Cleveland, in a TV studio, I don't know.
And I always remember about him, that he had that sort of 70s hairstyle at the time. I guess that was considered in, but probably wouldn't work today. But some of my earliest memories of watching wrestling were seeing Reynolds, in old
Mhm.
WWF stuff and listening to him. Although, granted, I will admit he was on his way out. He was being phased out a lot when I started heavily getting into it. I know he did originally host. I believe he
Right.
hosted Primetime Wrestling, right?
With
He was
with
with Jesse
Jesse.
Ventura. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
do remember that. I don't think that lasted too long, right? Before they made the
Actually, it
switch.
did. I think it
Did it?
lasted the better part of a year, and then they just flipped it to Gorilla and Bobby, and that was gold.
And I think Monsoon wound up replacing him on their syndicated show,
Right. Mhm.
whatever one
One
it
of the
was.
2 of them, yeah.
Yeah, the challenge or something. But
I always get confused about the timeline of the name changes of the 2 A and B syndicated shows. It used to be All-Star Wrestling and Championship Wrestling with
right,
no organizational name on it. Then I think they stuck with All-Star Wrestling and made the other one Wrestling Challenge or something. I don't even remember at this point. One
second,
was called Superstars of Wrestling for a while.
yes, they changed the A show to Superstars of Wrestling, and then they changed the B show to Wrestling Challenge.
Right. Yeah.
I think generally the Saturday show was the A1, that was Superstars, and that's the one that eventually went to Vince, right? No, Vince then
Yeah,
did
I
the
think so.
commentary for
Yeah.
that one, and I think Challenge they stuck with Gorilla.
They literally had to stop using Superstars of Wrestling because they got sued. Some promotion was called that, so they just called it Superstars after that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I had referred to the show that way, and we got a letter at our offices going, "That's you can't do that. This is our trademark." I went, "Okay, sure." You got any other old schooly announcers that you kind of think of? I'll hit you with another one if you don't. Let's go to Canada. You ever hear of Milt of Ruskin? Probably not. Another little guy in a tuxedo, big glasses, big hair. And he used to work for the George Cannon Superstars of Wrestling promotion and a couple of the Canadian promotions. And I thought he was good. I thought he got stuff over. Some people said, "Oh, he's so strident. He's so upbeat."
Mhm,
He sounded like he was trying to kind of mock Howard Cosell a little bit.
mhm.
And he had kind of an upper range voice. But I thought he's effective in getting over the talent, the angles, and everything else. I thought he was great. So I'm one of the few Milt of Ruskin fans out there, and he got me through college because I could see Canadian wrestling on this little borrowed TV set that we used to pass around the dorm room, and I used to borrow it on Sundays at 2 to watch Canadian Superstars of Wrestling or whatever it was. I don't know if he worked for Grand Prix, I don't think so, but he did a couple of organizations. The Gino Brito
Okay.
was promoter, the Dino Bravo,
Yeah, yeah.
and I thought he was okay. Listen, when you're at college, you're away from home. I didn't even
Mhm.
have access to WWF at that point, but I could watch Canadian wrestling. And that's what I watched.
There you go. Yeah, you take what you can get. And no, I can't say I've ever been exposed to him. Was this a long career or?
Had to be because I heard him in late 70s, and then I know he worked into the 80s. Promotion was called Superstars of Wrestling or what it was, but, it was Martel, it was
Mhm.
Bravo, people like that all in one big stew. Gino Brito took over a lot of color at that point too. I think it was Bruskin and Brito, probably before your time, was a WWF tag team champion under the name Louis Cerdan for some reason, along with Tony Parisi around 75,
Right.
76. Before your time, young man. That's back when it was good. Anyway, anyway, a little history for you.
That's cool.
Joe is literally trying not to nod out as they talk about Louis Cerdan.
No, I mean, look, the guy I'm thinking of is I know we're talking maybe more play by play or whatever, but
Yeah.
maybe not a play by play guy. And one of my favorite old school guys is still his lordship, Alfred Hayes. I loved his or I should say the color he did. I couldn't get enough of that guy and those old Madison Square Garden shows or maybe the Boston Garden, whatever he would be commentating usually was not it was never the main show.
I could take or leave that stuff, but I loved having him around for just the ad copy he used to read.
Well, that goes without saying. The promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Fry baby, fry mommy, and fry daddy cookers.
That
Yeah.
stuff was great. I mean, it's so iconic. You think back watching wrestling, yeah, of course the matches and all that stuff was the iconic stuff, but how can you not remember that?
Yeah.
The ads that he used to read was great. But I don't know. I think we've talked about it before, but I've always loved I think one of my favorite things about him was obviously I love the British accent. I just think he had such a like a snarky way about him where you kind of thought he was going to be a babyface commentator, but he was borderline heel. He used to applaud or celebrate the heels when they would cheat and when the referee was looking away and do things like that. And he would like it. And whoever the straight man was on commentary used to, oh, come on, Lord, come on, Alfred, how can you do that? How can you say that? And he didn't care. He had his favorites. He didn't care if the guy was a heel or a face. And I always liked that about him.
Speaking of Englishmen, I believe this man is Australian. Have you ever heard Lord Athol Leighton, Detroit, the Sheiks? He
Okay.
also worked in that Australia Federation I got done talking about on our last show.
Yep.
Very prim
Yep.
and proper. Lord Arthur Leighton here with wrestling featuring all the favorites of yours and mine. Just one of those straight-laced big guy. He was a wrestler too, probably about 6'6", real athlete. But he was so great in his disparaging of the heels and sticking up for the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the decorum in this arena? It just, oh God, I love that kind of stuff. It just made it. and he didn't overdo it, and he was always dressed to the nines. He looked like he was a member of British Parliament, but he's actually Australian, I guess. So, like Lord Athol Leighton, from the glory days of the Sheik, when the Sheik was super duper red hot. Look up Lord Athol Leighton and listen to him. I think you'll enjoy him because he's very prim and proper. He's just got it going on.
Something real quick I just want to touch on, being that this just sort of jogged my memory when you said that he would be applauding the faces and, you know, he was so against the heels and this and that. Is that something that I just read that Brian Solomon just posted on social media as a general observation on commentary these days, where it was one of the matches where the two guys were just killing each other at the end, brawling. It was, you know, the bell was ringing and the referees were trying to break them up, and whoever it was,
Tessitore?
Tessitore, yeah, that's him. He was on, and he was, instead of being outraged by that these guys were just, you know, going into business and they were killing each other and they were trying to get control of the situation, he was just like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. What an awesome brawl. And this is great to see. Brian made a comment on social media that I thought was pretty profound, that it was pretty true. It's like, that's such a little thing, but it's true. It's like he was applauding these guys who supposedly are really doing something they're not supposed to be doing. The match was over and they're killing each other. Old school announcers would have said, let's break this up. Let's stop this. Like, what is going on here? And almost be sort of offended by it. But now they're just one of the guys. It's just part of the show.
Some yes, some no. I'm going back to the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, a guy named Bill Cordell who did Pittsburgh. And he would say things like, welcome to another edition of Organized Mayhem. He wasn't exactly put down the mayhem and all the wild extracurricular violence that was about to ensue in your black and white TV back then. Some of the announcers from the 60s were really into there's wrestlers like Abdullah and the Sheik. It was like sadism. That was their shtick. Like we just twisted people trying to bust people open and enjoy it and all that stuff. But a good old fashioned brawl, you know?
Well,
we got a barn burner on this one, but that was Lance Russell. You know, he didn't exactly dislike a good fight outside the ring either.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit more. I think it's sort of a gray area, but I'm talking more like something that's completely off the rails. You know, and the match is over and there's a bunch of different guys coming down the aisle and they're fighting in the stands and maybe there's some juice, you know, things like that. So to me, I think that's what he was really referring to, where it's almost like, how can you really take it seriously now? Or how can you, as a viewer, think that, oh my God, like this is a really brutal fight or a brutal brawl, when your lead announcer is sort of like, you know, laughing and just saying, what an awesome brawl. This is great. You know, basically saying like, wow, I'm really entertained here by these two guys play fighting. It's sort of like, I think that's where he was getting at. And it was kind of true. It's like, I'd rather the lead guy sort of saying like, let's get some decorum here.
Nobody does it anymore. Nobody does it anymore.
No.
Look at it this way. Every single episode, as he sits at his desk, somebody's going to fly onto that desk every week.
That's right.
Is that spot played out or what?
Oh, it
Seriously,
was played out 10 years ago.
The desk spot is played out. Just recently, I was shocked when it resulted in a victory in an anything goes match. And I can't remember who it was. But it actually, somebody went through the table and they pinned him right there. It was within the last few weeks. And I was like, wow, it finally meant something. Right? Usually they get up after about 30 seconds and then it's all forgotten about, on to the next spot. Oh, no more table. That and the tables, the Dudley tables, we have seen enough. We've seen enough.
It's true.
But you know what? You say that, I say that. What are the fans chanting? Get the tape. They're still chanting that.
We'll get this. As we tape this, today, Netflix released the new season of WWE's Unreal.
Oh, boy.
And I will admit, even though I shouldn't be admitting this, but while I was working today, I had some of it playing. Some of the episodes were kind of on, so I was sort of half paying attention, half watching it. And one of the things, since we're talking about tables, one of the episodes featured Jelly Roll talking, obviously, behind the scenes, supposedly, about what he was going to do in this match tonight and everything. And he's literally getting on the table at ringside. This is before the fans were in the arena. He's saying that he's never taken a splash off the table before or had someone come off the rope onto him on a table, which he was about to do. And he said he needed to know how it was going to feel. So let me do it. So they're literally, the camera is showing you him getting on the announcer's table and tensing up. And he's asking Michael Hayes, okay, so what do I do when Logan Paul, hey, when Logan jumps off the ropes on me, what should I do? Should I tense up? Is that going to break the fall better? Yeah, tense up. You won't feel it right away, but you're going to feel it when you go to the back in a few minutes. And they're just going back and forth on this. And he's like, is the table going to break? And Hayes is like, yeah, the table's going to break. So as soon as the impact goes, the table will break. So this is how we're going to work it out tonight. And then they cut to the next scene. And I'm like, this is where we're at right now. This is where the business is at, where we're talking about how the table's going to break.
Why do you think I do a damn outdated wrestling show? Yeah. I have less than no interest in watching that program.
Yeah.
I don't care how many secrets are revealed. I don't care. That goes against everything I grew up watching. I'm looking back. I hate to say it. I'm not really looking forward that much anymore. And when I hear stuff like that, it spits in the eye of those guys who kept kayfabe. They would have been fired for saying something like that today. They would have been reprimanded. They would have been given a timeout or just told to go home. If somebody heard a wrestler say, I'll be out in 10 minutes because the match is only going to last, they would be sent home. Period. End of story. It was better then. I don't care. That's why I'm here with the show. I don't care.
And Paul Heyman on that same episode was talking, one of those camera interviews where they're speaking right to the camera, and the cameraman off screen said, what's, asking him these insider things like, Mr. Heyman, how important is working people in the business of professional wrestling? And Heyman's like, okay, well, let me get into this. It used to matter more than it does now. And let me be clear, I don't like this type of show. This goes against what I like. But of course, this is who's paying him now, so he has to do it. And he actually brought up that old school, do you remember the old ECW angle between Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman, when the Sandman was supposedly blinded?
Yeah.
And he kayfabe completely for like 6 weeks where he didn't leave his house, and he really, really worked it. And he talked about that, and they showed the footage of that. But yeah, it's like, what does it mean to kayfabe in wrestling? What does it work? What does that mean? How important is it to fool the fans and this and that? That's a really big part of this entire series. It's like a theme of this show now.
I insist that the word work is misinterpreted so much because I know for a fact it originally meant work the crowd.
Yeah.
And that was done within the squared circle, not by tossing somebody off a roof. Anyway, a couple more names on my list. I used to enjoy Corey Macklin in Memphis. He was the third guy or fourth guy. After Dave Brown was elevated when Lance Russell took over NWA syndicated TV, Dave Brown moved to the head commentator and had a secondary commentator named Brian St. John, who did a fine job. Then Brian left for whatever reason. It was replaced by a gentleman named Corey Macklin, who later took over the promotion, I believe, during its waning years. And he was a lot of fun. I like Corey Macklin. He fit right in. Just walked right in and started nailing it. He used to have a colloquialism. It's like, he'd just say, that's ridiculous. Just like that. And all these other sayings. What he lacked in experienced commentary, he made up of pure enthusiasm. I like guys like that. And he was fine. He was never too over the top, never too corny. So he fit Memphis, and that's all that mattered, I never heard any complaints about Corey Macklin. And I guess the last one I have for you ever hear Les Thatcher do commentary? Former wrestler.
Commentary? When did he do commentary?
A lot of commentary.
I did not know that. I don't remember that.
So yeah, he was a wrestler who became an announcer and trainer. Les Thatcher worked for Smoky Mountain. He also ran the Heartland Wrestling Association. He worked with Southeastern Championship Wrestling, and he's worked with, all the greats like Bob Caudle, Lance Russell. And he also was part of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. That's Jim Crockett. And he worked with Soley. So, yeah, he had more than a few stints, but he was real transient. He never seemed to stay in one place for long behind the mic.
I definitely was a fan. I used to get a lot of the Smoky Mountain tapes back when they were around, but for some reason, I just don't remember that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I was watching it after they had already taken him off. I'm not exactly sure how long he was doing it, but I don't remember that.
I don't remember any of the stints being long, and nobody complained about it. I thought he was very professional, had a great voice, but he just didn't last long in those roles. So anyway, there's a whole mess of announcers that I have all respect for. There was a time when I would watch the entire Joe Pedicino block from Atlanta, 8 hours of wrestling, and never once go, "Would that guy shut up?"
Mm-hmm.
Or a self-promoter like a lot of the announcers are now. Pat McAfee. Like, every time I see Pat McAfee, I want to throw a brick through my TV.
Yeah.
Interloper to begin with. Wasn't in the business. I want people in the business talking about wrestling. Does that make me kind of a snob, wrestling snob?
No. Triple H actually just said today somewhere that a lot of people consider Pat McAfee the face of the WWE. And I thought it was a joke. Like, I'm like, who considers Pat McAfee the face of WWE? I mean, first of all, he's not a regular commentator anymore, as far as I know. He just shows up when football season's over or whatever he does, or whenever his ESPN show is not on. That's just a weird comment. I didn't hate him at first. Like I could tolerate him, but the last few times it's sort of wearing itself out
There have
at this
been some
point.
bad color commentators. He's one of them because he's getting himself over and not the product.
Yeah.
I remember John Tolis was a horrible color
Yeah.
commentator for California Championship Wrestling because he was putting himself over, not the product. There were a lot of guys like that in the
Yep.
secondary chair. They're usually in a heel format, but they spent the whole time trying to put themselves over, like Austin Idol on recent NWA. You're
Yeah.
137 years old. Why are you putting yourself over? Listen, I'm all for the veterans, and they were the stars of my youth, but you know what? There comes a time, gents. Yeah, it's frustrating that some people who have been in the business seem not to get it as bad as the young guys do.
It's true. Yeah, I am not a fan of Idol on those NWA shows or whatever. Yeah, he's pretty grating. Probably the only current commentator that is worse than him is Booker T in
What happened to
WWE.
him? He used to be decent on the stick.
You're right.
I watched a little bit of it recently. I go, what is he doing?
You're right. That's the funny thing is that he used to be tolerable. He used to be decent. It's a chore. I mean, you are better off watching NXT with the sound off. I mean, that's how bad it is. I mean, you really are. I mean, that's how terrible he is. I don't know if he's doing it as a rib, but I don't know what it's like. He's trying to be bad.
Well, it goes part and parcel with today's ring announcers. I'm not going to
Yeah,
mention anybody by name, but now everybody's acting,
right.
weighing in 240 pounds, representing the Judgment Day. Can you just say it? Can we get on with things? Right?
I I miss the days of the announcer just saying the guy's name twice.
Yes.
Yeah,
220 pounds from Tallahassee, Florida. Mike Graham. Graham.
Graham, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It because you know what it is. It's like you look back on it now, and it looks okay. It's unpolished. It's not quote unquote professional. But that's why it was good because the announcers seemed like they were not part of the show. The announcers just seemed like they were up there. They were reading the card, they were announcing, and that's it. That's all they need to be. They don't need to be polished, enunciators and this and that. And it's just, it's a completely different ball game. But yeah, I used to love that repeating the guy's name or getting it wrong or you couldn't really hear them, or it wasn't like they not every announcement had to be cookie cutter.
I always talk about, and you go back to the late 60s, early 70s for the WWF, and it was Friendly Bob Freed
Mhm.
who would like I said, he'd mispronounce my name. Bob Samaya. He was unreal.
That's pretty
He would
bad.
mispronounce names, and, Cicluna's my favorite. You can see him on tape now on one of those Washington tapes. At our next card, the Molten Giant. What is he, a drink? He was talking about Cicluna, right? And then he mispronounced Cicluna. Baron Mikhail oh, man, he was unbelievable. The Molten Giant?
That's great.
I mean, I like a good malted, but I don't think that's the
Yeah,
proper
right.
way to say it, right?
Right, right.
Malton? And other things too. I mean, he used to pronounce Chief J. Strongbow as Indian J. Strongbow. Why? No one
Right.
else in the arena is wearing a headdress there, Bob. Friendly Bob Freed. Those were the days. Long before your time, young man.
Yeah.
You never saw Friendly Bob Freed, did you? See, those were the ring announcers I liked. Men my age in ill-fitting tuxedos. That's an announcer. You knew he knew his stuff. I used to love that too. It was a long time. I remember Joe McHugh mispronouncing Stan Hansen was from Borger, Texas.
Uh-huh.
And McHugh was going, 275 pounds from Border, Texas. And you hear Stanson and you see him going, Borger, Texas. See, that's the little stuff that was absolutely uproarious and it was natural. It wasn't planned. It was just
Yeah.
perfect. You see, there's the thing. If I hear one other neckbeard on Facebook complaining about botches, you ever drop a pencil, pal? All right,
Right.
please. Or do you work at an auto dealership, you drop the wrench on the ground? Stuff happens. To me, it only makes wrestling look more real when somebody can't do something.
True.
It's not ballet. See, that's the problem. Oh.
That Stan Hansen mistake makes me think of, did you ever hear the story when I spoke with Tito Santana years ago? He said that the reason why he was billed from Tacula, Mexico for his whole career was because I feel like it might have been Finkel, but I'm not sure if it was Howard Finkel. The announcer read the card wrong, that he was really from Toluca, Mexico, Toluca,
Right.
but whoever announced it thought it said Tacula, Tocula. So for his entire career, Tito Santana was billed as from Tacula, Mexico, whereas in fact, he's actually from Toluca, and they just went with it. I guess it was his first time out there, and they said it, and then the next time they said it again, and from there on, it's legit, you know?
Joe McHugh mispronounced the name of my favorite wrestler's whole career. Baron Miguel. No, it was Mikel with a K.
Yeah.
Mikel.
Yep.
Baron Miguel. Where did that come from? And, Cicluna, who supposedly was the nicest guy in the locker room, never once corrected him. Just let it go on for years. From the 70s into the 80s, he was Baron Miguel's. I love old-time wrestling. That's why we're here, right?
And that's the thing. And like, if that happened today,
Oh,
if that was
it would be headlines on Pro Wrestling News Blast or whatever the website
right.
is, right?
And it would be headlines. And not only that, but, obviously if it was live, there's nothing you can do. But if that was a taped broadcast and that happened, of course, the first thing, there'd be somebody on the headset in the back saying, "Oh," and you got to retape that to make it sound
It's
perfect.
homogenized. If Lillian Garcia, who was back in the fold, ever would just flub on a word or have to repeat something twice, he would be pilloried for it. It's
Yeah.
unfair. It's a ring announcer. They're there to tell you who the people are. It's not a performance.
Yeah.
You got to blame the Michael Buffers of the world for this stuff, who turned it into a performance. Let's get rid of the Roomba.
That's true. Yeah.
It became performance art as opposed to just announcing who the people were. You know who was a ring announcer for boxing? Diamond Dallas Page.
Now?
No, not now. Early in his career, he was a boxing ring announcer.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You're on a roll today.
Because I got a brain full of guacamole. There's nothing serious in there. I can't remember my wife's birthday, but I can remember Diamond Dallas Page was a boxing announcer.
You know what it is? It's because you've been off the Carvel, because the Carvel was messing up your brain. Now that you're off Carvel, you're going cold turkey. I think it's helping your brain.
There's no help in my brain. There's no help in my brain. It's like every day when you get to be my age, young man, you will notice little things. Right now, my left elbow is throbbing. It really hurts. There is no earthly reason why my left elbow should hurt right now. I didn't bang it. I didn't lift something, right? There's no excuse for why it's like throbbing off of my body right now and all red. It just is.
No
That
excuse.
is aging, my friend.
Just your age, right? Yeah.
That's my age. And you can't get Hydrox cookies anymore. Do you know that? You can get Oreo cookies. They don't even make Hydrox cookies. And you know what? That's awful. All right, here's one for you. Did you ever have Hydrox cookies?
Yes, I have.
And you've had Oreo cookies, right?
Yes, I have.
What do you like better?
I'm not a lover of either cookie.
Okay. So you're really not.
But I mean, I would assume, Oreos are better, no?
Absolutely not. Hydrox just puts them to shame. I don't care that they went out of business. Hydrox had a fresher, more tangy taste. The cream was a slightly different flavor. No, they weren't mirrored. They did not taste alike. They looked alike.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
looked
I always thought Hydrox was just like the poor man's Oreo.
Oh, well, maybe it was, but I much preferred the Hydrox. It had a tangy, creamy vanilla taste as opposed to the bland, commoner Oreo stuffing.
Here's one for you. Do you ever have Cameo cookies?
I think I did, but I don't remember them.
They're the vanilla. They're like long cookies, vanilla wafers, and the vanilla cream inside them. They're kind of like long. And did you ever have Vienna Fingers?
Oh, Vienna Fingers, yes.
Vienna Fingers and Cameos. They were like the same cookie, but I think when I was growing up, I always thought Vienna Finger was the poor man's, because Cameo was always a little bit more money. And to me, it just seemed like it had better packaging or whatever. I don't know. But the funny thing is, I don't know if Cameos are around anymore. I haven't seen them in a while, but I still see Vienna Fingers at my local ShopRite.
Commoner. You know, you should only eat bakery cookies. You know this, don't you? Come now. You only live once. Pay that extra $1 for bakery cookie. You ever have bakery cookies?
You talking about Italian bakeries?
No, any bakery. Yes, Italian bakery,
Oh, of
normal
course.
bakery.
I love those. Yeah,
Oh, they're the best cookies in the
they
world.
are.
Freshly baked bakery goods, baked goods, real
Do you like
stuff.
rainbow cookies?
I don't remember ever eating a rainbow. I probably did. I just don't remember.
The Italian rainbow cookies. They're like
Oh
3
yeah,
layers.
of
Yeah,
course, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
How about what is the store? Stella D'Oro?
Tho those are good. I mean, there's a lot to choose from there. Some are better than others, but yeah, those are good.
Stella D'Oro. What was with breakfast treats?
Celador breakfast treats. Sounds like Lord
Breakfast.
Alfred Hayes should be
One of
doing that
one
commercial.
of the great commercials with a real tragedy. Remember the wife and the husband
Yeah.
are up at 3 in the morning, and the husband comes in and goes, what are you doing up at 3 in the morning?" She going, the wife goes, "I'm having a Stella D'Oro breakfast treat." And she's going, "You're not supposed to eat them at night." "Oh, no, you can enjoy Stella D'Oro breakfast treats anytime." I still say they're just for breakfast, and picks up a cookie, and she goes something like, "Harry, don't think, eat." One of the great commercials.
I don't think I remember that. That's
It's like
great.
the end of a marriage for selling
Yeah.
cookies.
I like the Stelladoro marguerites. You know, they have the vanilla and the chocolate ones.
Over my head.
They're very really long, like, they look like biscuits, but they would come in the package where some were chocolate, some were vanilla. You don't remember those?
I may have had them. It's been a long time.
We run in different cookie circles.
I'm not a cookie guy. I
I
very
am.
rarely would opt to have a cookie.
I am. I like cookies a lot.
Yeah, well, I like fattier, heavier items. There's Joe Puccio is the proprietor of Generation X Wire, the entertainment website. I don't know if you've done the interview by now, but you just talked to Lydia Cornell. She
Yes.
just followed me on Facebook. I
Did
didn't
she?
follow her. She followed me.
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me because I will say she has been phenomenal since I've interviewed her and I text with her a little bit here and there. She's really, really gracious with just reposting and just posting on her own social media, the stuff that I put out for my website. And she knows about the podcast, not for our article, but just talking about our lives. And maybe she went on, she saw it, and she decided to give
I
you a
think she
follow.
put 2 and 2 together. She listened to what you had to say, obviously. I didn't follow her. She followed me, so I followed her back.
Yeah.
And basically, that's as far as it's gone at this point. But she just posted a whole mess of old posters and stuff she posed for and stuff like that. And oh yeah, she was quite popular in the 70s. Was it the
She's
70s or early 80s?
Yeah, that show, Too Close for Comfort, she did in the '80s, like the early to mid
It had to be the
'80s.
early 80s. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, she's done a lot since then, but I mean, what a great person to talk to. What a great family history that she had. Granddaughter of Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and just so many crazy stories that she had, but
Is that
really
up?
great.
Is that up on the site now?
It is up. Yes.
GenerationXWire.com. And how's things come with Morgan Fairchild?
Morgan Fairchild, that'll be in a couple weeks from now. So that's on we have a date set, but haven't done that yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
If this streak you're on isn't attracting my listeners, I don't know who's going to listen. Morgan Fairchild, Lydia Cornell, keep the list going.
I hope so. I mean, I try to get a mix of people that I watch their shows all the time, that I'm heavily familiar with. Granted, I admitted it that Morgan Fairchild, I really didn't watch a lot of the '80s nighttime soap operas like Dynasty and Knots Landing and Dallas. That was more my parents' style. And
It became a really big, I think it was Flamingo Road was her show, I'm pretty sure. The one that was a hit for a couple of seasons there. So there you go. All right, everybody. It's GenerationXWire.com. You'll hear more about it late in our program. But Joe, thanks for being here again. Always good to see you. I hope we see you next week, right?
you will see me, and I appreciate it as always, Bob. A great time.
Thank you, sir. Hold on for a few minutes for you IWCCW fans out there, you East Coasters. And I know this was on around the country too. Let's go back to the 80s and 90s. And one of the most unique wrestling organizations out there, Mario Savoldi's IWCCW, and their lead announcer, Brian Webster. First time I'm talking to him since 91 or 92. This is going to be fun. We'll be right back. Let us go back in time, a long time ago. The gentleman you're about to hear, I think the last time I spoke to him may have been 1992. if my memory, maybe 93, but I think it was 92. And somehow, some way, I did about, if you chop them into chunks from the tapings that we did, I was on about 17 to 20 editions of the IWCCW television show, both adding color commentary as well as interviews, one of which I consider a career highlight. We'll talk about that. And I was proud enough to sit directly to the right of a young man who everyone I know in the industry thought was an up-and-coming announcer, and he was, and he proved his worth every time he sat in front of a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, for you IWCCW fans, it's Brian Webster. Brian, hello.
Wow. Hello to you, Mr. Bob Smith, my friend. It has certainly been at least since 1992, huh? 33, 34 years? Wow. Crazy. Thank you very much, by the way, for having me here. I'm really excited to talk some old school wrestling. I am an old school wrestling guy at heart. I always will be. This is a real thrill for me. So thank you very much for having me on.
Pleasure's all mine. I wondered what happened to you. It's a funny industry in that I don't even know if you know this, why I disappeared. Well, Stanley Weston retired. He was the owner of the PWI magazines.
Well,
and what happened was he walks in the office one day. I'm selling to Kappa Publishing in rural Pennsylvania. I had just bought property in Long Island, right? Still a young man, but, buying property is a big deal.
Sure is.
I didn't see how financially I could swing it to move again. It would have been very complicated. I had just bought the place like 18 months before he decided to sell the company. So they were going to move from Rockville Center, Long Island to Pennsylvania. I could not go. This is so long ago. It was pre-internet, free cell phone, free everything.
Yep.
And we were still using an antiquated word processing program. You had to be in the office to keep with the job. So when he walked in and made that announcement, my heart sank, and I was mentally out of the company before he even stopped talking. I knew what I had to do. I had to get out. And I ran out of there, to be honest with you. I took the first menial job I could find and went away. Now, thankfully, after that, I got jobs freelancing for like 4 other wrestling magazines. So I stayed in the industry for like another 10 years. But that was why I disappeared. I wanted you to know that. It was just a situation where I couldn't work for them anymore. And it was really, really sad. So that's why I vaporized on you guys.
Wow. Yeah, I never knew that story, Bob. You were always around at the shows and doing your thing and doing the interviews and joining us for color commentary. I can remember you saying, what do you need? What do you need? Let's do this. What do you think about this? We would just do it and have fun doing it. Then you weren't around. So that IWCCW as we knew it wasn't around.
But let's go back in time a little bit, because let's talk about you. How did you hook up? Well, what were your goals as a young man, and how did you hook up with Mr. Mario Savoldi and end up with what must have been a very enjoyable job?
Oh, it was like not having a job. But I'll go back to the beginning. When I was a kid, a very young kid, 7, 8 years old, I had my first exposure to professional wrestling. It used to be on WLVI out of Boston. Saturday mornings. Loved watching it. Loved watching all the guys and the matches, and was so into it. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a wrestler someday." Well, I weighed. I was always a skinny kid, and my parents they didn't discourage me from doing what I wanted to do, but they did ask me to think about doing something else. At the same time, I was really interested in radio broadcasting. So started to follow that a little bit as I was growing up. And then I just got this idea. I wonder if I could combine my love of professional wrestling with broadcasting. And one day I got the guts, I guess you could say, to call the IWCCW office. And a nice lady answered the phone, and I talked to her for a minute, and she said something along the lines as, well, we could be looking for some commentators, and I'm going to give you a gentleman's number, and I want you to call this person, tell him you spoke to me, and we'll see what happens. That person turned out to be Tommy Savoldi. And so I talked to him, and he said, no promises, kid. But you come up to, they were going to do a TV taping in New Hampshire. And the name of the town, shame on me, I don't remember the name of the town. I should, right? It was my first night. Laconia, New Hampshire, on the lakes of New Hampshire. And I got there, and they had me do some stand-ups in front of the camera, some introductions, some things like that. And then the ring announcer didn't show up. So they asked me if I wanted to ring announce. So I was a ring announcer, and that's actually what I was doing when I first started working for the Savoldis, October of 1991.
That's amazing. That story reminds me of Vince Russo, who wrote a letter to Linda McMahon wanting a magazine job and actually got it. There's an old expression, if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's true.
And you asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry Sullivan is another example of that. When he was a kid hanging around in Detroit, maybe college age, and he wanted to announce, he simply asked. And the Sheik said, sure. You never know what's going to happen with this stuff.
That's right.
So
That's right.
you stuck your neck out, and you got in there. What did they tell you the job was going to be like?
So they gave me a sheet of paper with the matches, the weights, where the wrestlers are from. This is a match order, kid. You're going to hear the bell. You're going to do the introductions. The bell's going to ring again. Then the next time the bell rings, you announce the winner. Okay, simple enough. Now, I'm dying, Bob. I'm dying because this is something that I have wanted to do at that time for so many years. And I'm seeing guys like Taz and Tommy Dreamer and Coco Beware and Kevin Sullivan. And they're all on this card. And I watch these guys on TV, and I grew up watching Kevin Sullivan, and I was absolutely in heaven at the time. It was so just like mind-boggling that this was happening to me. I don't know. I couldn't get enough of it. So at the end of the show, Mario pulled me aside and he said, "You did a good job, kid. We'll be in touch." And that was that. And I went home. And then, let's see, maybe 2 weeks later, I got a call. Meantime, every day I wanted them to call me and tell me, okay, we're going to go here and then you're going to do this. And, about 2 weeks later, they called me and they said, okay, we're going to do a show in Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut. So come on down. We'll have you be the ring announcer. So I was the ring announcer for that show. At the end of that show, Mario asked me how I would feel about being on TV. Cha-ching! I've made it, right? Then from there, the studios at the time were in Lewiston, Maine. The Boston Bad Boy, Tony Rumble, and I went to the studio, and we recorded several weeks' worth of International World Class Championship Wrestling. And the rest, as they say, is history. It just snowballed and grew from there.
That's great. And I'll tell you something else that's great. It's been many decades. That organization went through a lot of TV announcers. They really did. If you look at 11 to 12 years, they probably had 5 or 6 different people at the lead mic. You can look back at the tapes and see that.
Sure.
But when you sat down at that desk, I'm not putting anybody down at all.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. You were fresh and very professional. Your voice was excellent. Your pacing was great. You had an encyclopedic knowledge of the sport. You didn't need any coaching. And when whoever decided to put the timekeeper Mike Mittman next to you was also a genius, because there's another guy who lived, eat, breathed all this stuff and actually had worked with Dominic DeNucci and Bruno years earlier on television. So it was a match that propelled the organization into a much classier looking product by the time you guys sat down. And the fact that they were recording in the Pennsylvania arenas where the WWE used to work only added to the luster of it all. Things really started to percolate. The roster of stars and the roster of young people, you talk about guys who I knew when they were young too, Taz and Tommy Dreamer and those guys. The young talent got better. The old talent, like, you couldn't miss with Tony Atlas. You just couldn't miss with him. He was quite a guy. What was it like to be involved once your nervousness stopped? I know you must have been nervous at the beginning. Once you got more confident, how was the flow of the job? Were there any problems? Was communication between the promoter and what you were saying? Did anything go smooth?
I would say that everything went mostly smooth. I remember where, I don't think it was Mike Mittman and I, which, by the way, love that guy. He and I just clicked. It It just worked. We both approached it with we're just sitting there and we're watching wrestling matches and we're just calling what we see. The timing was just there. I'd finished what I had to say. Mike picked up. I then picked up when he was finished saying what he had to say. It just clicked, and we were both so passionate about it that it just felt very, very natural and like the right thing to do each show. We were that in sync. But back to when did things go smoothly? For the most part, yes. There were times where I guess I would, I don't guess, I did it. I mimicked what I would see on, say, Primetime Wrestling with those studio shots with Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. And I remember Mario saying, you're not Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, just be Brian Webster. It was a massively awesome piece of advice that stuck with me. I remember it to this day, and I took that with me throughout my years of broadcasting in the business.
Now, you had headphones on, and I at one point had headphones on too, and there was a voice coming in. Whose voice was that?
Yep. So that's Jim Rosen, very, very well-known director, very good friend of Mario's. Jim used to live and work in Boston television. He worked at WFXT 25 for many years, producing local television shows back when, local TV was local TV. And Mario brought Jim in to direct our show. And that was Jim sort of, calling the shots and making sure everything was happening when it was supposed to be happening.
Yep. I'll tell you a funny story. And this is cutting into the part where I'll describe how I got involved. But one time I'm in the ring and they told me to interview a wrestler and his valet. I'm not going to say their names. Okay. And I'll tell you why. This is funny. I hear the voice and they start to talk. Like I had introduced them and I had said something like, you guys aren't doing the right thing. They were heels. And I hear this voice in my headphones going, oh God, we got to shut this off. This is awful. And he goes, listen to this. I can't just go. He said, just wrap it up. We don't want this. He really said these things to me. And I'm not going to tell you who they were, but let's first say they were rookies. They were young wrestlers. They were just starting out. And I was like, well, that's it. Thanks to God. The whole thing, I cut it short and did what they told me to do.
Yeah. All of these faces are flying into my.
But I often wondered. I thought it was Tommy. I really thought it was Tommy, and because it sounded like Tommy. Tommy ever talked to you? He was yelling at you.
Perpetually irritated with everybody.
Yes.
That was just Tommy. But man, what a heart of gold that guy had.
They all did. That was the amazing thing, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well too.
Okay.
So you guys are percolating. You're doing well. The show's getting better. It's got better pacing. It's got better optics. Everything was really going well. Talent was good. And one day, Apter says, come with me to, I forget where you were taking. I think it was there. And he says, I have to do some backstage interviews. Why don't you come along with me? I said, fine. Take some still photos or whatever. So me and Apter show up. Forget exactly where it was, but there's Atlas and a bunch of the other stars. And he does a few of his PWI press conferences. And he's talking to Mario, and Bill out of nowhere goes, give Bob one. What? I said, give Bob one. Let Bob try this. I said, okay, who you want me in there with? He wanted me to go with Atlas and Rumble. I went, oh my God. Talk about an incubation period, right? Oh my goodness. So I go, what are we going to do? He said, talk about what happened with Putski and do your usual thing. I said, fine. So I spent about 4 minutes with these guys just berating me up and down. And at the end of the thing, they're just laying into me. And I got a few questions answered, but overall, they were just being their usual rough selves. At the end of the thing, I say, this is a PWI press conference. My name is Bob Smith. And I went, Bill, I wish you were here. And I had this look on my face, like, I really want to get out of here. And they stopped and everybody applauded and said, that was great.
Whoa.
Because they were like shoving me around, they were really abusive. And I think it was at that point when I think it was Mario who went, Bob, will you come back? Like, I think the first time I showed up there, Bill couldn't come, right? Bill was a regular, but Bill couldn't come. So he's got his hand over the phone. He goes, Bob, you want to go to, where was it, by the way? Was it Hamburg? I think it was Hamburg.
Well, that was
right?
Hamburg, yeah.
Right. He goes, Bob, you want to go to Hamburg? And just, I said, sure, take pictures. I said, sure. And I know for the first couple of cards, I just took photos. You saw me at ringside.
Yeah.
With my achy breaky bob hair. I had such long hair back then. It was crazy. Right? Right. It was ridiculous. I don't know what I was thinking.
A wild time, right?
Yes. But anyway, that was cool. And, I got to know Mario a little bit. And then I cannot remember who asked me to sit at the desk. I really don't remember. I think it was Mario. I don't think it was you, or maybe it was you through Mario. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so that's the way I recall it. I recall asking you, "Hey, Bob, you want to join us for a couple of matches?" And I probably did get that directive from Mario, or maybe even Tommy. Yeah, and I remember. You remember Curly Moe? Well, oh, great guy. So Don was working with us as well, and I remember it. It was you and me and Mike and Don, and then we'd rotate Don out, and you'd come in. It'd be sometimes it'd be you and me, sometimes it would be
Right.
Mike and you. Yeah.
In those early ones, I would actually stop and go shoot photos so I could do 2 jobs at once. Like I would do commentary for you, fill the chair, and then I would go shoot because we would put the pictures in the magazines, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of like a work, it was working and working. And it was so much fun. And eventually I started doing ringside interviews, which I stopped to think at one point, and I'm like, oh my God, I am standing in the same spot, in the same arena that Vince McMahon used to stand,
Yeah.
interviewing these wrestlers right in front of the ring, this same setup. I said, in my mind, I was thinking, this is as good as it gets.
I am so with you, Bob, because the first time I went in there, I just stood and I looked around and I could feel it.
Yes.
Would feel that is such an amazing building. If the proverbial, if the walls could talk.
Absolutely.
So many great matches in the Hamburg Fieldhouse. Route 78 West, exit 10. I'll never forget it.
Right. I don't even remember the drive. I just remember getting there and parking just where the regular people parked and coming in.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, I think I did 3 more tapings with you guys overall. So that's a lot of shows because you split them into rounds.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful time. And I have some more memories. So I'm going to get back to you, but I want to talk about my memories. One of the best memories I have. It's early. I showed up early to everything. So I'm hanging out in front and Mario comes out and he goes, I'd just like to interview a couple of the guys. I said, sure. First one was Greg the Hammer Valentine. You don't think that was a thrill? Absolutely. For the Peterborough press conferences, to what they called them.
Yeah.
But the biggest thrill, and I mean this, Mario walks up and goes, how'd you like to interview Joe? I said, Joe Savoldi? Sure. And he goes, no, Joe McHugh.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's ever interviewed him on television, ever. I said, are you serious? So I'm like, to me, that was the voice of my youth. I grew up listening to him every single week. I skipped church and argued with my parents to watch Joe McHugh, right? He meant a lot to me. And the fact that I was able that late in his life, and I know he enjoyed it because he was smiling the whole time. We had this little 5-minute segment. Wow.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say Joe McHugh. I just had this feeling.
It was a total thrill for me.
Oh,
and let me tell you one thing you don't know about that moment. At that same time, I took some photos of him standing in the ring. As we know, he was very ill at that point.
Yes.
And he passed away not long after that card.
Yep.
And I get a phone call going from his family. And he goes, Bob, we know you took pictures at the arena. We saw them in the magazines. Would you make a picture that we can put? I'm getting a little emotional. Would you take a picture and make one for us for the funeral? I said, would I? I'll send you a batch of them and they'll be free of charge and it'll be my honor to do it.
Wow.
And to me, that meant the world. It meant the world. I mean, the fact that not only did I meet the man, I got to interview the man, but I could actually pay tribute in a little way by sending the family those photos. I thought it was just a blessing, to be honest with you.
I remember Joe as being so gracious with his time in providing advice. He was fun and funny in between the matches, things that folks don't see on TV. Joe would make some jokes. I remember one time he wasn't particularly feeling well. And so he wasn't getting up and into the ring and back out of the ring as much as he normally would. And I just remember he had the audience roaring because at one point he said, "If you don't mind, I'm going to stand out here and announce this next match because I hurt my back earlier skateboarding." He just had a great sense of humor. He was a wit and just a nice man to be around.
Yeah, so I think I have my fingernail in wrestling history because if I've been the only person to interview him on TV, I'm as proud as punch. I'm telling you. I just
So that was a one in that interview, like it just happened.
Well, I think you were there. I think you were sitting there. What was going on? And then I think I interviewed you and Mike just to talk about the state of the IWCCW, and then the tag team. What was the name of that Indian tag team?
The Sioux War Party.
Sioux War Party. That's right.
Yeah.
I did them. I did Taz with their manager Darren, or the Tasmaniacs, the two of them at that point.
Oh yeah, yep.
And a bunch of other people, and I had just a wonderful time. And I really felt at ease. It didn't feel like work. And apparently they were all good because they all made the air. I've seen them all on television. So, and here's a funny story. When I'm working at PWI, I'm going to the bank. I'm depositing my paycheck. So I'm leaving and going back to my car, and there's a teller running after me. I said, "Is everything okay? Did I not take enough money or something?" He goes, "No, I saw you on TV on Saturday. I want to say you were great." I said, "What?" He saw me on the IWCCW. So I then ran out of the bank to say, "Man, I love that show." I said, "Well, thank you very much."
That's really cool.
We got into a conversation. He didn't even know that PWI was published in that town. And it was wild. It was really wild. So back to you. Enough of me. Yeah, back to you. So things are going along well. You know, the show's real good. But as we all know, time passes and everything has to end.
Yeah.
Well, how did it end? Do you know? Were you there to the end when the shows went off? How did it work?
So yeah, towards the end of, I think it was towards the end of 96. Might have been 1997. There was they were beginning to do some transitioning out of live events and then repackaging shows, getting into the pay-per-view business. I mean, Mario's got thousands upon thousands of hours of television footage, I should say. And so things were just transitioning over to productions like pay-per-views and that sort of things, and just repackaging the episodes of IWCCW that had already aired. And so I was doing that for a while, doing some a lot of behind the scenes stuff of putting the shows together and then making sure they got out to where they needed to go and what have you. And then over time, IWCCW became ICW. They began to run more shows and do some more television. Then there was a partnership with the IWA in Puerto Rico. So it was IWA Total Impact in both the English and Spanish. Later, like in the mid 2000s or so, and forgive me if my dates are off, but in the mid 2000s or so, Mario became a member, his company became a member of the National Wrestling Alliance. So we did live events and television on a show called NWA on Fire. So we were back in it again, doing our tapings and doing the commentary live at the shows and having a great time.
That's great. I'm totally unaware of that particular point.
I sort of retired from the business in 2011.
Wow, that's a long time. You did great. No, seriously, because listen, at that time at PWI, when I left there full time in 93, I think it was, everything was falling apart. Organizations were failing. Smoky Mountain went out of business. Calgary out of business. Continental went out of business. You name it, they were on their last legs. So when I walked away from the company, I just figured, well, you know, they're all going one by one. But the fact that you were still employed that late, that's pretty impressive.
You never really get out. So in 2016, I went to work for another promotion with Mario's blessing, even though I wasn't really working, on a full-time basis for him anymore. I felt I owed him that. So for 1 year, I worked for another promotion, a small promotion in New England, which was great because their shows were at a place that was about 35 minutes from my house. So, and they only ran once a month. So I went, did the show, and could sleep in my own bed at the at the end of the night, which was a treat. And then beyond that, Mario began getting into the online world of professional wrestling and all of that, which is so exciting because now all of those great shows, all of those great matches, those great interviews, they're all in one place on the web. And I occasionally will do some voiceover work. So that's really exciting too because I get to keep in it a little bit and do something I love, which to this day still does not feel like I'm working. At the Hamburg Fieldhouse or at Kutcher's. Kutcher's was great. Remember Kutcher's?
Kutcher's, and I'll tell you a story about Kutcher's when we're finished, but go ahead.
So anyway, so Kutcher's. So my favorite moment at Kutcher's, my favorite moment of all time is Surfer Ray Odyssey cutting a promo at Kutcher's in front of a live crowd. And he says, "It's great to be back here at Kutcher's, the home of shiny curtains and gefilte fish." Crowd goes bananas, right? Talk about a great guy.
That's really low with a lot of the different factions. I knew Ray, and I knew Sonny, and I knew the Mest guys, the Mark Mest and all those guys. We went out one night after the thing, and they were the coolest cats. I mean, they were really, and they were hungry young wrestlers. They really wanted to show what they had, and I think they made, when you guys integrated a lot of those guys into that scene, it kind of made it a little more exciting because they were working their butts off.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You talk about like you mega match. You put Tasmaniac, and Ray Odyssey in the same ring together. You are in for a treat every time. That was one of the great rivalries of the late '80s, early '90s. And they were phenomenal inside that ring, bell to bell.
It did not surprise me that both Taz and Tommy Dreamer became the stars they eventually did.
They had it right in the beginning, and you could just tell. They would shine right from the very beginning. They had what it took, and they made amazing careers for themselves.
They were so serious, and I got to know them both a little bit. One day, Dreamer showed up to Peterborough. I didn't even know he was coming. He showed up to see me, and we took photos of him and everything. We welcomed him, and there was no problem. But I didn't know he was coming. He just kind of showed up out of nowhere. And Taz was one of those special wrestlers, along with guys like Bill Dundee, that first you go at that height, and then when the bell rings, you don't even notice.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you forget all about that.
You don't notice. He could take on anybody.
Yep.
What a wrestler he turned into. Unbelievable. But they were both so serious. They were both, it was in their blood. And once you get it in their blood, you can't get out of it.
You got that right. Like, I feel like this is the place for me to on a show called The Outdated Wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly think the name of the show made it the hit that it became, because it's like, that's a great title. It grabs you a little bit, and then when people find out actually with the wrestling magazine all those years, it helps. It gave me the credibility to get started, and we're in our 4th year now, and I can't believe it.
Oh wow, congratulations!
Yeah, I can't believe it. It's been also astounding.
You have a Kutcher story?
I have a Kutcher story. I'm supposed to be there on a Saturday night. I forget the year. I was supposed to be seeing you. I was supposed to be seeing the whole gang.
Yeah.
So I arrive at the hotel, and I hadn't been feeling well. And I get to the hotel, and they booked a room for me. They had a room for me and everything else. I don't know why, because it wasn't that long of a drive from where I was from, but I'll take the room, fine. But I get to the room, and there's a pain in my lower flank in my right side, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I said, I've never felt pain like this in my life, right? So I call the front desk, and I say, I really think I need an ambulance. I'm really messed up here. And I was messed up. My blood pressure spiked. My face was red. And they took me out in an ambulance and gave me morphine. As it turned out, I blew out my right kidney, right? It wasn't, it didn't kill the kidney, but I was sick enough that it was like flared up to the point where I was, with blood pressure spiking. And it wasn't a healthy situation. I ended up in the hospital for 2 days out in Monticello somewhere, right? I don't even know where I was at the time. Here's the thing. I got better pretty quick. And I'll tell you what, morphine works, right? It really does. But here's the wonderful thing about this. You remember Howard Rapp?
Sure do.
Wonderful man. I get a phone call couple of days later, I'm sitting at my desk at PWI, and he calls me because he was the guy to set it up for me to go in there. He goes, Bob, I heard what happened. I said, you did? He said, yeah, it was the talk. He said, they said there was a gurney being wheeled out and you were on it. I said, yeah, I had a problem with my kidney. It was flaring up and I needed some medicine. And he goes, Bob, if there's anything you need, you call me.
That was Howard.
I mean, I talked to this guy maybe 5 times in my whole life, right? And he goes, if there's anything you need, please come to our next thing or whatever it is. He said, just feel better and know that we're all thinking about you. I never forgot that. And when he died, what was it, last year? I shed a tear because people like that don't grow on trees. They just don't. What wonderful people the Savoldis were and Howard Rapp and a lot of the people. Tony Atlas, I got along famously back in the day, and I've seen him recently in Albany for the Hall of Fame. And the memories are off the charts, Brian. They just are. Yeah. I didn't have a bad moment. It seemed easy. And one more thing I'll tell you about Mario Savoldi. At the end of one of those tapings, I think there was one taping where it was just you and me. Mike wasn't there for some reason.
Yep.
The last one I did, I don't think Mike was there. I get up and I'm leaving. I'm getting my camera bag and all that other stuff. And he hands me a check. I go, what the hell is this? He goes, well, just to show how much we appreciate it. I said,
yeah, that's Mario.
But here's what I did. I said, I'm going to give this back to you. I want you to give this to the boys. Don't worry about it. Because I was working a full-time job. I was getting paid to take those photographs, right?
Yep.
So whatever I did outside, when you guys saw me at ringside, I was getting paid for that. So I said, don't worry about it. I really appreciate it, but you never need to do this. He said, great, no problem. But that's how cool Mario Savoldi is.
Definitely always taking care of people.
Yeah, and listen, folks, I'm not buttering anybody up. I cannot think of another bunch of people that I worked with in all my years in wrestling where it was easy, it was fun, they all knew what they were doing, and they had a schedule, they stuck to it, it was organized, and it was, what would you call it, Brian? It was just the major league that was a minor league. I don't know what else to say.
That's a good name for it. Yeah, major league that was like the farm team.
Because they all worked in the majors.
Yeah, people come through, and yeah, I mean, Mario worked for Vince McMahon Sr.
Like legendary wrestler, yeah.
Yep. And
Savoldi toured the country. All of them. Everybody you talk to.
Yep. Absolutely. And and while they're in these other places, they're learning, right? They're observing, they're watching. And they're taking the best of all of that, and they're creating their own product. I wish everybody could get to know them because, especially Mario, he treats everybody so well that you want to go out of your way to do a better job than what he expects from you. That's I can never say enough about him.
Yeah, I can't say enough about you and everybody there. I mean, as an announcer, you had it going on. It was, we used to talk about it in the office. Like, if somebody's going to scoop up Brian Webster, I really thought you were NWA bound or something like that today. I really did. No, I'm not blowing smoke at you.
Thank you for saying that. I do appreciate it. I honestly, I never wanted to go anywhere else.
Really?
Yep, never. I loved working for Mario. I loved being in the company. I loved being around. I got a chance to travel to a lot of places that I would never see if I was a quote unquote civilian.
Right.
And I just have nothing but great memories.
Yeah. And I just too. It's like, it was just a magic period of my life. And, I've had many wonderful things happen to me. After that point, when the magazines folded up, I went on the road as a musician for 15 years and sang blues and performed with BB King and a whole mess of that. Awesome. Yeah, I did really well. And I also ended up working for a couple of companies that were the best in the world at what they did. And now I'm retired, and I just sit back down and I think about how lucky I am.
Yeah. We get a lot of perspective, right? As time goes on, as we get older. Yeah.
So can I ask, you don't have to be specific. What are you up to these days? I understand you're still working, right?
So I'm still working. Yeah. So I dabble in wrestling, working for Mario.
That's great.
Shout out to Daniel Archambault as well. He is
what a nice
phenomenal guy. Oh man, such a nice guy, so genuine. And he is like steering that ship, right? Savoldi Classic Wrestling. He is just the guy. So,
well, I had him on the show a couple of years ago to talk about the library, and I'll have you know, I am a subscriber to the library. First of all, folks, and I'm not here to give a commercial to these guys. It's a bargain. It's a bargain. If you're into old classic professional wrestling, including some organizations you may have never heard of, or ones you have heard of but never had an opportunity to see, this is a great source. And I just want it because I'm an old school wrestling fan. And, you look at the menu and you keep scrolling down the menu. Oh, maybe I'll look at this old other ICW, or maybe I'll look at some world class or old USWA or all this other stuff that's on there. IWA, which I grew up loving. I love that promotion. So it's like, it's a treasure trove for anybody with gray hair. We'll put it that way.
Definitely. Speaking of IWA, another great guy, Victor Quinones. He was phenomenal as well. Really, when we'd go down there and we were working with IWA Puerto Rico, Victor was always very welcoming and very professional to work with. That was also a very, very professional organization at the time. And maybe they still are. I don't know. I am kind of removed from all other wrestling except the classic wrestling. Mario's classic wrestling. I don't watch the modern stuff anymore. I haven't in many years. Once in a while I'll hear some scuttlebutt and I'll pay attention to it a little bit, but like I said, like I'm just an old school guy. And that's not taking anything away from what the modern product is today. I prefer the old time stuff.
Oh, me too. And, look, I cannot damn them because they're printing money. They fill a football stadium 2 days in a row at prices that are just so unbelievably wild. Your eyes fall out of your head. It's incredible. So they're doing well. I say New York Knicks tickets are expensive, but they sell at 19,000 seats every game. So who am I to say,
Right.
But times change, promotional philosophies change, the wrestlers change, the promoters change, the bookers change, everything has changed now. Whether it's good or bad, it's up to the individual. I'm not going to damn anybody for watching AEW or the current WWE. If you love it, go watch it.
Absolutely.
Because somewhere out there's a 12-year-old kid just like me discovering it and fall in love with it.
Yep. Who says someday that's going to be me.
Yep. And either that or they just love it and they're going to watch it the rest of their lives like I have. So yeah, that's not a bad deal, right?
Definitely not a bad deal.
And there's still indies out there. One thing really impressed me about him as a promoter, and I think this was important. You get around 89, 90, 91, and you have the advent of the hardcore federations and the kind of grittier indies. But Mario's shows you could bring your kids to, and you never had to worry about.
Yeah, it was intentionally family friendly, and it helped the product stand out from everyone else that was producing that type of entertainment.
Yeah. Well, the beauty part is, wrestling shoots itself in the foot so often. Example, there's a poster in your town or an ad in your newspaper saying wrestling's coming to the high school, right? And it lists a bunch of names you don't even know, but the parents and the kids are going, we're going to go see what we watch on TV. We're going to go watch wrestling. And then they present hardcore matches or death matches or bad language or sexual content. And they're never going to get booked in the high school again. And parents are never going to bring their kids again. I think it was always important, even in the old days of the 70s, that you don't push that envelope too far when it comes to pro wrestling, or you're going to drive your audience away.
Absolutely. They will come once, and then, so to speak, they will kill that town. And the people won't come next time.
Either through violent, I'm watching tapes online of Abdullah the Butcher, who I have nothing but the greatest respect for, but the match consisted of him jabbing a pen or, a foreign the guy's forehead for 20 minutes, and that was the whole match. And little kids are watching this.
Yep.
And I'm like,
and mimicking what they see.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never stopped to think of that, but you make a good point.
It used to hit me when, it never bothered me. I probably never even had an opinion of it one way or another until I had my own children.
It changes.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Craig Peters. I remember him at the magazines going, what are you doing talking about beer on wrestling? Because at one point, I think Coors advertised on the NWA, and he was against it, and he wrote about it. And he thought it was just a step too far because nobody had ever done beer on wrestling at that period. But, because that was the period where it softened up, the Matilda, the Bulldog gears and all that stuff. It got kind of family friendly intentionally. And I understand his stance on that. And anybody, any parent, you want to know what the content is, that's for sure, especially these days. So, Brian, as you look back on everything, you sound like you're full of gratitude and happiness over the whole doggone thing, and it's refreshing to hear. It really is.
I could not have imagined or asked for a better experience working for the Savoldis. Everything I learned from them, everything I got to do because of them, even, getting involved with a couple of other promotions here and there and doing some work for them as well. That's all because Mario Savoldi decided to give me a chance. And I owe him an invaluable debt of gratitude.
Nice to hear. And listen, I'm a big, it's funny. I hadn't seen Mario in 30 years. And when I walked in at the Hall of Fame, he grabbed me in a bear hug. Yeah. Like we were talking about, like so sharp. His memory, he just remembers everything. So every year we get together around the holidays. We all, families get together and we have dinner. He just talks about the old days and talks about stuff that happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago with such clarity, such detail. It's just amazing. I can only hope to have half of that type of memory as I get older. I hear you. And I'll tell you one thing right now. At that first Hall of Fame, you got Mario, Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, and Justin Ray's trading wrestling stories. 80 barred the door. That's all I had to say.
Right? You can sit there all night and just listen to that.
Mouth just hangs open, and I don't even want to talk or shake hands. I just want to listen because they were just dredging up these old tales of stuff that happened during cards and things back in the WWF days. It was fascinating. It was really, really a lot of fun. They're all great guys.
Oh, definitely. I had a great opportunity to work with Tony Atlas on some of those pay-per-views that I was talking about earlier. Great guy, really, really nice guy, and great to work with. I got to travel with Tito Santana a little bit. Also, another great storyteller. I could just get lost in that stuff. Like you said, forget about shaking hands, forget about paying attention to what's going on. I could just sit there and listen to those guys talk for forever.
Oh gosh, I just ran into Johnny Rods and Davey O'Hannon at the last Hall of Fame from last year. And I sat with them and listened to them talk, and I'm not interjecting. Yeah, you're hearing stuff nobody else has ever heard. It's amazing. Because he always wrestled everybody,
I have never met Johnny Rods, but I remember watching him on television, and what a workhorse.
One of the best. Well, and now he's in 2 Halls of Fame. And I'll tell you this, too. He's coming on the podcast soon. He invited me to Gleason's Gym, where he's still training wrestlers to this day.
Jeez, huh? Well,
yeah. I can't wait to go. I just wanted to get the weather a little better here in the East. It's not an advantageous time to travel right now, if you know what I mean.
I sure do. We just the other day here, we got almost 2.5 feet of snow in one storm. So yeah, it's not. And we got spoiled too because we went a few years without really having any snowstorms to speak of. Just a few inches here and there. Throughout the winters, and this one was a whopper, and it hurt. Not a Mr. USA Tony Atlas over your head body press, but still it hurt, Bob.
Yes, it does. Well, listen, I'm very gratified to hear that you're still doing post-production, whatever it is you're doing with the Savmar Wrestling Library, and I want to point everybody to that. It's affordable, it's fun. Get a yearly subscription, you won't even feel the pinch, right? It's really, really great stuff. Just sit there and play with the menu, and you'll see things you never saw before, or things you wanted to see and didn't know. In fact, right now, I am shocked to find out there really was the match between the Honky Tonk Man and Rick Rude. Everybody thought that was just pop.
Right. It is such folklore, right? All of these it's a little match never happened. Oh,
they showed the promo with Bill Apter for like 6 months, and we're going, "What does this match happen? This never happened." Everybody in the world was like, "That's not happening." It happened, and they have it.
Yep, definitely worth checking out.
Yep. Well, Brian, thank you for all the memories. Thank you for your friendship, and most of all, thank you for being here. It's been an absolute honor for me to talk to you again. I hope it's not the last time.
Same here, and I feel exactly the same, Bob. This has been, I cannot believe the time has passed so quickly. This has been such a nice visit 34 years. Let's not make it another 34 years.
Yes. We'll find a reason to get together. How's that sound?
Definitely. I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. Yeah, the one and only young and up-and-coming announcer. The way I always felt about him, Brian Webster. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with the elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. I cannot tell you what a stone cold pleasure it has been to say hello again to Brian Webster. I am the luckiest son of a gun. I have done so many cool things in my life. It's crazy. And getting to know Mario Savoldi, Brian Webster, and Mike Mittman, and all the people at IWCCW was a stone cold blast. Thank you all. It's some of my best memories. I mean, I met Taz there, Tommy Dreamer back in the day. It was really something special. I continue to look at and support the Savoldi Wrestling Library. You can find that on any streaming service. Look it up. It's called the Savmar Wrestling Library. I subscribe yearly, and it's really affordable, and it's a lot of fun. And you'll find yourself on a rainy day looking at some matches from the 70s or 80s that you've never seen before. It's well worth your time, well worth your investment. The Savmar Wrestling Library, it's great. Known as the Angelo Savoldi Wrestling Library as well. So that's it for right now. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook. I'm Millie Bob Smith, singing with B.B. King. And speaking of that, I am soon to be on another podcast called Mixtapes, talking about my music career primarily. So Robert Charles lives. We will find out more about that in the weeks ahead, and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on with that. Our website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. All of our episodes are there, and you can find out how to get involved with the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, where for the most menial fees, paid only monthly, you can join our team, help us continue our broadcasts, not only here, but also the podcast called the Outdated Entertainment Hour, which is such a good time. I hope you've tried that one. You want to hear a show about old magazines or comic books or the movie Babe or theater or television, the greatest sitcoms? It's all there. You're going to want to check that out. It's nothing but fun, I guarantee you. I'm on all the social media too. It's either outdated_Bob or just Bob Smith. You'll find me. I use the same wizzled old publicity photo on each single thing that I do. If I took a new publicity photo, I think people would scream and run. So I'm going to stick with it. I actually look semi-human in the one I use now. It's me standing in front of a poster about the Montreux Jazz Festival. As I recall, I have to go look at it because I'm old. I don't remember what it is. So in any event, there you go. Thank you, Joe Puccio. Thank you, Brian Webster. Thank you all. Ringo Starr, one of the great Beatles, one of the cool cats. Fingers in the air, let it be. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.